Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا بني إسرائيل قد أنجيناكم من عدوكم وواعدناكم جانب الطور الأيمن ونزلنا عليكم المن والسلوى كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم ولا تطغوا فيه فيحل عليكم غضبي ومن يحلل عليه غضبي فقد هوى وإني لغفار لمن تاب وآمن وعمل صالحا ثم اهتدى. اللهم اجعلني من المهتدين واجعلكم من المهتدين. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم. فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Once again, everybody, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I'll start by sharing something personal with you. As Ramadan proceeded this year, I decided to do a different kind of reading of the Qur'an for myself and just highlight parts of the Qur'an that I felt like I haven't paid enough attention to. And it turned out it looked like most of the Qur'an. So as I moved forward, I just realized there are places that just need so much attention. And then I started wondering, are we as a community also, it's just because I'm not paying attention to it, is that we overall don't pay much attention to it? And I didn't find much material on some of these places in the Qur'an. So I'm going to dedicate this evening to one such story in the Qur'an that is there. It's really important and it's significant, but I haven't heard much about it in our durus and our khutbahs and things. Maybe you have, but I think there's a lot we can learn from it. So we're going to spend our evening contemplating a place in the Qur'an in Surah Taha. This is Surah number 20 of the Qur'an, and it's one of the stories of Musa alayhi salam. But it's a very particular story that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in some detail here in Surah Taha. One quick thing about it, Allah did talk about some parts of this story in Surah Al-A'raf, in Surah number 7. But He added some details here that are not found in Surah Al-A'raf. So I'm actually starting with Surah Taha, and I'm going to stay with Surah Taha. So many of you are familiar with the story of Musa alayhi salam. This begins where the adventure with Fir'aun ends. So they've crossed the water, Fir'aun has drowned, they're on the other side. They've now been saved. The Israelites have now been saved under the leadership of Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, by Allah's command, when he struck the staff, the water parted. The Israelites, men, women, children, in the hundreds of thousands crossed. Fir'aun and his entire army follows. They all get drowned, they get crushed, and that's the first thing that I want you to know. فَأَتْبَعَهُمْ فِرْعَوْنُ بِجُنُودِهِ فَغَشِيَهُمْ مِنَ الْغَمِّ مَا غَشِيَهُمْ. That Fir'aun with his armies followed them, and whatever was meant to overtake them, overtook them. Meaning the waves overtook them, and they're done with. Now, وَأَضَلَّ فِرْعَوْنُ قَوْمَهُ وَمَا هَدَى. And Fir'aun misled his nation, and he didn't guide. Meaning he thought he's guiding his people to victory and to save his nation, and he took the most elite soldiers of his nation and drowned all of them. He got all of them killed. وَمَا هَدَى. Now they're on the other side, and this is, before I get into the story itself, I want you to know some things about the style in which Allah tells a story. Movie makers have a style. They talk about film producers and directors, they have a certain style. So in film, when a new movie is coming out and there's a famous director, people are excited because they know he has a certain style of storytelling, right? So in every art form, there are signature styles in every art form. So for example, in design, interior design is a kind of art. And architects have a certain kind of signature in their design. And if you're really into architecture, you can look at a building and say, I know who designed it. I can tell who designed it. People that are into art itself, digital art or abstract art, they can go to a museum, they can look at a painting and say, I know which artist this is. Because artists tend to have a kind of signature. The same thing happens, astaghfirullah, in the world of music and film and any other form of art. There are certain styles of art, and you can hear a little bit of it, and you can tell who this is, whose artwork this is, or who it's inspired by. Well, Allah Azza wa Jal is actually the source of all beauty. And by the way, art what I'm calling art in any form is actually an expression of beauty. That's all art is. It's an expression of beauty. And the source of all beauty is Allah Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allaha jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful who loves beauty, right? So as a result, when Allah tells a story, He tells it beautifully. And He has a certain signature, a certain style of telling a story. And the style of the Qur'an, the style with which Allah declared His own word in the Qur'an, you will find it extremely different from the way the stories are told in the Bible. Worlds apart. It's the same people, the Israelites, Moses. This is in the Bible. This takes the majority of the real estate in the Bible. The story of Musa alayhi salam and the Exodus. There's even the book of Exodus, right? But the way Allah will tell the story in the Qur'an is completely different. Not just in terms of the what, but even in terms of the how Allah is telling the story. So now I told you they crossed the water. The first thing Allah wants you to know is the way Allah spoke to them directly. That's the first thing Allah wants you to know. Now they're in the safe zone, and Allah now says in the next ayah, Ya Bani Isra'il, sons of Israel, children of Israel, and He's talking to them directly. قَدْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ عَدُوِّكُمْ. We have now rescued you from your enemy. Who's the enemy now? We've just rescued you from Fir'aun. Okay, so now what? So He says, وَوَاعَدْنَاكُمْ جَانِبَ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ. And we have taken a promise from you right on the right side of the mountain. What is this talking about, the right side of the mountain? Way back when Musa alayhi salam ran away from Egypt, if you know the story. He ran away from Egypt. And then he got married and he had a new life. And one day he's traveling with his family and he sees what? You guys know? He sees a fire. And he saw a fire on the right side of a mountain. And now Allah is talking to the Israelites, and He's brought the Israelites from the water, and He brought them to the same mountain where this whole story began. He brought them to the same mountain and said, and now I have taken a promise from you right by that same mountain. Why is that mountain significant? If Musa alayhi salam was never at that mountain, they would have never been freed. They would still be slaves in Egypt. The only reason they have that freedom now is because this entire story of revelation began with that mountain. And now after all of that rescue, Allah has brought them right by that mountain again and said, I have taken a promise from you from the side of that mountain. وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. And I have sent down manna and salwa on you, because they were in the desert. And because they were in the desert, there's no vegetation. They're all going to starve and dehydrate. So in Surah Al-Baqarah we learn Allah covered them with a cloud that would follow them. So it was a divine umbrella that was following them, so they wouldn't be scorched by the sun. And it would also give them rain, and it will also give them shade. And now they don't have any food, so Allah gave them grain that they could grow in the desert. That's man, and birds that wouldn't fly away when they tried to catch them, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to eat, and that was salwa. So their proteins and their carbs and their hydration were taken care of. All the essential nutrients are done. And then the regular water supply, Allah had even given them the 12 rocks that became 12 springs. You know, the rock that broke up and it became 12 springs. فَانْفَجَرَتْ مِنْهُ اثْنَتَا عَشْرَةَ عَيْنًا. So they were all the stuff they needed to survive after crossing was done. Now Allah is making a brief reference to it here and saying, I'll repeat it, we rescued you from your enemy. We took the promise from you from the side of the mountain, and we've given you manna and salwa, meaning we've not only given you freedom, we've given you the resources to be able to survive and live a free life. Fine. But then Allah says, "Kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum." Eat from the good and pure things that we have provided you. What did Allah provide them? Allah provided them manna and salwa, and He provided them the water that I mentioned. Okay? So just before I go on, I just want you to know something. If you just imagine, you have to put yourself in the story when you read stories in the Qur'an. So you have to put yourself among Bani Isra'il. You wake up in the morning, you turn to your mom. Mom, what's for breakfast? Manna and salwa. So what are we having for lunch? Salwa and manna. I'm in a mood for a manna sandwich. How about some salwa though? There's nothing else. There's no ketchup. There's no salt. There's no pepper. There's no salad. There's no dressing. There's no fries on the side. Nothing. You got nothing else. And you get the same food for breakfast, you get the same food for lunch, you get the same food for dinner, and if you're in the mood to drink something, what you gonna get? You're gonna get water. There's no juice, there's no fruits. There's nothing else. That's the same exact kind of food. And this is not the story here, it's the story in Baqarah. But in Baqarah, they got tired of eating the same food. I mean, if you have the same iftar for 3 days, you start giving your wife the look. Like, ye kal ka khana? Is this a leftover from yesterday? I can't eat yesterday's leftovers. We need something fresh. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go out and eat. I can't do this. I can't survive. Ramadan is too difficult. So before we go pointing the finger at the Israelites and saying, these ingrates, Allah gave them manna and salwa and they were still ungrateful. Let's look at ourselves a little bit before we point the finger. This is also a test. But I'll briefly comment about that test to you, because that's not our main story today. The brief comment I want to make to you is they used to live in Egypt. And in Egypt, they were free, or were they slaves? They were slaves. But when they were slaves, they had vegetables and lentil and garlic and onion and cucumber. They had that stuff. They had a variety of food, but it came with a life of slavery. Now they're free. Now they're free. And now they don't get a variety of food, they only get one kind of food. Some of them started saying, hey, can you make dua to Allah? I miss some of the old food from Egypt, man. Some in baqliha wa qithaiha wa fumiha wa adasiha wa basaliha. Surah Al-Baqarah, they said, Musa alayhi salam, they went to Musa alayhi salam, Ya Musa, Allah likes to listen to your du'as apparently. He could split water for you. I think He can arrange for a little bit of salad too. So why don't you ask Allah, and here's the grocery list. So they gave him a list of vegetables to ask for. Because manna and salwa is good, but we got a little, let's make this iftar more interesting. So they gave him a list of things to ask for. And the reason this is important is because if you were in prison and one day you got free, and after you're free, you're like, man, I miss that prison food. I miss that jail cell, that mush they used to give me. Can I go back to, can I get that food? If you miss prison food, then it's the same as saying you miss what? You miss prison. You miss prison. Allah tested them, and Allah is showing them that the price of freedom is you had to let go of some of the things you became used to. You had to get out of your comfort zone. That was the price of freedom. So when they told Musa that we miss prison food, then they were actually not appreciating the taste, not of food. They couldn't appreciate the taste of freedom. They couldn't appreciate that. Allah says to them, eat and drink eat from the good and pure things that we've provided you. The good and pure things is the same kind of bland food, but you know what makes it so good and so pure? That it's coming with freedom, that it's coming with dignity. They don't have to live like animals. They don't have to be treated like worthless, pathetic creatures that are owned by other human beings. They don't have to be treated with humiliation. Their soldiers can't just walk into their home and kill their boys and let the women live. They can't just watch, young men can't just watch their mothers being mistreated on the street by Egyptian soldiers under the Pharaoh's rule and not be able to say anything, not be able to do anything. They don't have to live like that anymore. They are free. So Allah is telling them directly once they get free, eat from the good and pure things that we've provided you. And then He says, وَلَا تَطْغَوْا فِيهِ. And this is where the unique part begins in Surah Taha. He says, and don't, listen to the translation, it's strange. Don't rebel in it. Don't be rebellious in it. Now you guys tell me, what is it referring to? The food. How do you rebel in food? What does it mean? Allah is saying, eat from this food and don't rebel in this rizq. This is a heavy statement from Allah. This is, scholars of tafsir will call this isti'ara tab'iyya, and there's long discussions, but I'm going to make the easy version of this for you. So you take the lesson from this. Allah is saying that when I give you blessings, you get so drowned in those blessings, you get so comfortable in those blessings that you start taking those blessings for granted, And then you feel like, yes. Yeah, I know. I have a mic chewing problem. Hold on. Okay, is that better? Is that better? Okay. So you get so used to those blessings that you take them for granted. And as a result of taking them for granted, you feel entitled. And when you feel entitled, you start disobeying Allah in all kinds of ways. This is an interesting formula Allah is talking about that He has talked about with other nations. So I'm going to take you to some other nations and then come back here. Allah describes, He criticizes disbelievers all over the Qur'an. But there's one particular kind of people that Allah especially goes after in the Qur'an. They're called al-mutrafin. New word for you today. Al-mutrafin. Say that for me. Al-mutrafin. The mutrafin are people who basically live large. Okay? If they want to have a meal, there's like a whole feast. If they want to go on a vacation, they're going to take an entire entourage with them. They don't want to go to the beach, they want to take their yacht to the beach. You understand? The people that live super large and splurge and spend and spend and spend. You know, people that have fancy weddings or parties and they give every guest that comes, they give them a diamond something or a gold something, and like, why did you do that? Or you give everybody a car, you're just spending and spending. These people are called mutrafin. And Allah has a lot to say about those people, that those kinds of people become the most reckless in terms of Allah. They don't remember Allah at all. They get so lost in their luxury and they become so entitled that they develop what you can call nowadays God complex. They become like that. Allah is telling the Israelites, and they don't even have a lot right now. They only have manna and salwa. But He's saying, it may be manna and salwa now, but watch out. You get used to Allah's blessings and you're not grateful, you're going to become rebellious in no time. Because you'll enjoy the blessings of Allah, life is going to be easy, and when life becomes easy, you're going to become rebellious. What do you find in America? As I traveled, I learned this the experiential way. I went to countries this last year, that are struggling economically. And I met a lot of youth that live in countries that are struggling economically. And then I come back to the US, and we're doing pretty good. And the problems of the youth that are struggling economically and the problems of the youth that are living well are totally different. They're totally different. The problems of the youth that are living well, they've got a nice house, you have your own room. Like the idea that a kid has their own room, maybe in the time of Fir'aun that used to be a thing. But there's not a thing where you, in the Muslim world or most of the world, the family has a room, not the kid has a room. You have your own room. You can change the temperature in your room. You know, you have your own TV. Oh my God, your life is so bad. You only have a PS4. You know, you have every luxury possible, and these kids are so miserable and so depressed and so angry and so bratty and so entitled and so loud and so rebellious. And I don't know, I don't think I believe in Islam, Mom. It doesn't make much sense to me. I don't know why we pray and stuff. It's so backwards. You know where a lot of that's coming from? It's coming from being mutrafin. Because when someone gets used to luxury, then the idea, I have to be grateful for what I have, it starts disappearing. It starts going away little by little by little. I noticed this change in attitude when you travel. You see the diversity in psychology of people. It was one of the first things I noticed. Now the Israelites are not millionaires yet. They basically just have manna and salwa, and instead of a house, they have a cloud. Right? So they're living outdoors. So they're not living large, but Allah is warning them. Listen, be grateful and live within the halal, because if you become rebellious, taking the blessings I've given you for granted, He says, listen to these words, فَيَحِلَّ عَلَيْكُمْ غَضَبِي, then my rage will be unleashed on you. Allah didn't say then you will be in trouble or you will be sinful. The wording is very strong. He said, my rage will become unleashed. يَحِلَّ حَلَّ الْعُقْدَ means to undo a knot. It's being held, Allah's anger is being held back. And Allah says, I will let it go. I will let it go on you if you're not grateful for what I've given you. And by the way, the biggest thing Allah has given them is two things. In the worldly sense, freedom. And in the spiritual sense, guidance. Two things. For my heart, it's guidance. For my body and my being in this life, it's freedom. Allah has given them both of those things. Don't take them for granted. فَيَحِلُّ عَلَيْكُمْ غَضَبِي فَيَحِلَّ عَلَيْكُمْ غَضَبِي وَمَنْ يَحْلِلْ عَلَيْهِ غَضَبِي فَقَدْ هَوَى. And whoever my anger falls on, that person is as good as someone who has fallen off a cliff. Hawa. Hawa in Arabic, to fall from somewhere high, to fall somewhere low. It's like Allah is saying, these are the people that are truly going to be humiliated. Ibn Ashur and some others, Ash-Sha'rawi rahimahullah had beautiful commentary about this ayah. I read that today and I was so moved by it. He said, if you are used to the luxuries of this life and you forget about Allah, like you have a good, you have good looks, you have health, you have money, you have car, you have pleasures, you have everything in this life, and you become rebellious to Allah. Hawa also means no matter how hard you try, you're gonna get old. No matter how hard you hold on, the car's gonna get old. The money's gonna get old. Things are gonna, even if you become wealthier, your body will not get stronger. Your body will become weaker. You will try to fight it, and you will try to do research on what surgery I can do, or what medicine I can take to feel younger and look younger. But you're fallen. It's getting taken away from you no matter what you do. And you are heading, there's one thing that's for sure coming if I live a life of disobedience, and that is Allah's anger being unleashed on me. Sooner or later, quite literally, I will fall. فَقَدْ هَوَى. He's as good as fallen. This is the warning Allah gave directly to the Israelites. Now, before going on, I'll tell you one more thing. This is not from Surah Taha, this is from Surah Al-A'raf. They got across the water. It's been some time. They're doing okay. They pass by a town. When they passed by a town, those people were not Muslim. They had their own religion, and they had temples, and they had big statues, and monuments and stuff. And they saw people praying in front of them, begging to them, bowing to them, making a nice temple around all that. They saw that stuff, and they had seen some of those things in Canaan because they're Canaanites, and they had seen some of those things in Egypt, and they saw those things again. And after everything Musa alayhi salam did for them, you know what they said to Musa alayhi salam? Ij'al lana ilah kama lahum aliha. Could you make us a god like these people? Like they have such nice colorful gods. Can we have one? Now, listen, like if you put yourself in Musa alayhi salam's shoes for a moment, after everything he's done for them, after fleeing Egypt, coming back, standing up to the Pharaoh, 10 years of struggle against the Pharaoh, 9 years or more of struggle against the Pharaoh, crossing the water with them, and they've seen so many miracles of Allah. After everything we've been through, you turn around to your prophet, and what do you say? Hey, I think if we had a statue, it would help me concentrate a lot more. It's like a visual aid, Like if we had like a God statue, then I think these people look like they're doing pretty good spiritually. Look at them, they sit there for hours. They have so much better khushu' than us. I pray for 2 seconds and my mind goes towards, is it pakode or samosa today? I can't remember. My mind goes all over the place. It's for Muslims, khushu' is very hard, isn't it? Staying focused in your prayer is not easy. But then you look at other religions, and those people are just sitting there, and they're sitting in front of the statue, or they're sitting on top of a mountain, and they're sitting for 6 hours, and they don't budge. How'd they get that kind of khushu'? That's because shaitan's like, oh, you're already doing my job. I don't need to distract you. He's interested in you, bro. He doesn't want you to have concentration with Allah. If they have concentration on anything else, he goes, I don't even have to work on these people. They're already doing my work. I can put my full concentration on ruining the guy who's making salah. Right? We have nothing to be jealous of from it. But these people came and said, well, maybe we could have that. Now, the real question, before we go on, the real question is, why would they say that? Why would they ask that? After seeing all those miracles and following a prophet, why would they even ask that? And these aren't just pagans. These are children of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And they've had prophets for so many generations. Ishaq, Yaqub, there's prophets of old that they know that legacy, and Musa alayhi salam is part of that legacy. So it's not like the Israelites converted to Islam because of Musa alayhi salam. They were already Muslim. Then how come this happened? And this is where I want to remind you that the stories in the Qur'an, they're not just stories about ancient people. Allah told us every one of those stories because it will be applicable to Muslims today and every generation. Allah will never tell us a story in the Qur'an because it's interesting information, because it's fun facts from history. Nope. It's always some living problem that will come back again like a virus, that will come back again and again and again in every generation. It's not like something that existed a long time ago. So I need you to know something about the Israelites today. These people went through many different cultures, like Canaan. And in Canaan, people used to consider the bull is the strongest animal on the farm. Because compared to the sheep or the cow or anything else, the bull is the strong animal and it pulls all the weight, does all the work, right? So the bull became a symbol of strength, and over time in Canaanite religions and Sumerian variations, the bull became an object of worship. They used to worship the bull. In fact, they even used to look at the moon when the moon is weaker, and they looked at it and said it's the horns of a bull, and the bull is pulling the sky. That's what they believed about the stars, or about the moon in the sky, right? And from it then became the sacredness of the cow. And that wasn't so much in Egypt, but it did exist among the people of Canaan. And the Israelites had a lot of genetic, mixing with the people of Canaan. They spent think of it this way: Muslims living alongside Hindus for hundreds and hundreds of years, for example, right? Or Muslims living alongside Buddhists for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'll tell you an interesting thing that I saw in Indonesia. In Indonesia, many Buddhists live there, yeah? And Hindus also. So Muslims, when Islam came there, they noticed that when they call people to the temple, you ever seen those giant, like, dongs, and they go, dong? You know those martial arts movies that you don't watch because you're Islamic? Dong, right? They do that. So they would strike it, and they'd strike it again, and strike it again, and strike it faster, dong, 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 dong. And that's their way of saying it's time for, it's temple time, or whatever. And the Muslims were so smart to call people to Allah. You know what? One of the things they did, because people that never heard the adhan before, so you know what they did? They started doing the dong, 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 and then they do the adhan. And hundreds of thousands of people started coming to the masjid because they heard the thing. And I went to the masjid in Indonesia and I heard the thing go off, and I was like, am I in the right house of worship? What's going on? No, this is a tradition from before, and it commemorates something that brought millions of people to Islam, the most populated Muslim country in the world. Subhanallah. But I wanted to give you this example because what happens when different religions live side by side? You take something and you take something, and there's some exchange happening. Like in South Asia, many of us are from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, etc., right? The way that the girl is dressed for the wedding, and the colors that she wears, or the way that they dress the bride and the groom, that's not Muslim tradition. Where did that come from? That's Hinduism. That comes from Hindu tradition. We have many values and many parts of our tradition that are actually borrowed from Hindu culture. So we know that some borrowing happens. Now, borrowing in masala is okay. Borrowing in outfits is okay, no problem. You understand? Borrowing in architecture, no problem. Where do we not borrow? In our religion. In our religion, we don't borrow. Our religion is already pure. Allah has given us guidance already. And Allah told the Israelites, I have taken a promise from you from the side of the mountain. Hold on to this. Don't let this go. And then they go to Musa and they say, could you get us a God like that? I mean, there should be some room for ijtihad, We're still Muslim. We're still Muslim. So we do a little bit of this stuff. And guess what happened in countries like Muslim countries that are closely related or in proximity to other religions? Muslims started developing their versions of Hindu shrines, their versions of alternative houses of worship that are not masajid, their versions of worship that look just like Hindu worship,
just like Buddhist worship. It looks just like it, but they're still Muslim. And they say it's not a big deal. I mean, they have that. We can have a little bit of that here and there. And those of you that are from Pakistan, India, you already know what I'm talking about. You already know what I'm talking about. So many rituals, so much paganism made its way into Islam. And the thing is, Allah is teaching us something really powerful. That human beings will always be drawn towards shirk, and they have to go through a lot of training to let go of that desire. In fact, even if they are living with a prophet, which prophet are we talking about? Musa alayhi salam. They lived with a prophet. They saw the prophet's miracles with their own eyes. But the culture has affected them for so many hundreds of years that even though they're living with a prophet, they have the audacity to ask that prophet, what's so bad about some extra, can you make us a visual God? How's that a bad thing? SubhanAllah. It's crazy. That's crazy. But then, so that was the first warning sign. That was the first red flag. Now come back here. Allah told Musa alayhi salam, I want you to come and meet me for 30 days alone. I want you to come meet with me for 30 days alone. Allah told him which day to show up at the mountain, and I will give you my revelation. This is called the mi'ad. So the mi'ad was that Musa alayhi salam is going to be called, and Allah will give him the Tawrat. He's going to give him the revelation. And Allah told him which day to come. Now Musa alayhi salam is with the Israelites. By the way, when I read this story, one of the things I think about is I'm a teacher. And if you've been teaching your students for a long time, right? And you say, chapter 1, why we believe in Allah. Chapter 2, Allah is one. Chapter 3, you get to chapter 55, and one of your oldest students says, so why do we believe in Allah? What? Chapter 1? But in America you can't do that. But if a student did that in Morocco, if a student did that in Indonesia, if a student did that in Pakistan or Bangladesh, and the student said, so they ask a chapter 1 question when you're on chapter 50, what's the teacher going to do? Huh? It's called hands-on education, right? And we know Musa alayhi salam, you don't want to make that man angry. Because that man can throw a punch. He can throw a punch. And these people are really pushing it with the one prophet you shouldn't be messing with. Like Nuh alayhi salam, I can kind of get it. Maybe you can get away with that a little bit. You don't want to mess with Musa alayhi salam. And this is why even Musa alayhi salam sometimes he would get so angry with these people. And I feel like sometimes we are unfair to Musa alayhi salam. We say he had a really bad temper. Bro, do you know what he had to deal with? We can't deal with anything even close to that. He had an amazing control over his temper. When they told him, we will not listen to you after crossing the desert. We will not listen to you until we see Allah Himself face to face. Okay, you don't want to give us an idol we can look at? Let's see Allah Himself. That's what they told him. He said, A'udhu billahi an akuna min al-jahilin. Ya Allah, I seek your refuge. I don't want to be from the people who lose their control. Because jahil is also losing control over your emotions. Ya Allah, don't let me unleash on these people. But these ayat are not about Musa unleashing on them. These ayat were, if you aren't grateful for my blessing, whose anger will be unleashed? Allah's anger will be unleashed. Allah's anger will be unleashed. Now Musa alayhi salam has to deal with these people. Now you tell me. And many of you have been in a position of being teachers or being maybe you're in management. And when you're a teacher or you're a manager or you're a boss or you're the head of a family, I have 5 minutes, oh my God. I just got started. Okay, I'll wrap this up quickly. I think I'll finish this the next time I come in a couple of days. Okay, inshallah, because there's a lot to here. But I'll wrap this part quickly up. Okay, so the thing is, if you have to deal with unruly students, disobedient kids, a rebellious family, people that don't respect you, people that question you, is that a pleasant experience? No. And maybe if you don't find peace among those people, then one of the best things you can do is get away from them for a little bit to find your peace. You'll find some people, they spend a lot of time in the masjid. Like they're always in the masjid, mashallah. But sometimes behind that mashallah is an astaghfirullah. Because they're finally at peace in the masjid, because there's a lot of drama at home. And I'm just gonna, there's one place I can breathe, man. I can't talk to her. I can't talk to her. I'm just gonna talk to God. You know what? At least, and there could be people in that situation. Musa alayhi salam has to deal with these people that get on his nerves. Everything that comes out of their mouth, even me as a reader, it gets on my nerves, and he has to deal with it directly. And then Allah says, come on this day to meet with me. I'll give you my book. Musa alayhi salam shows up early. He showed up early. Oh, the thing is, there's two reasons he showed up early. One, these people are so difficult. What do I do? How do I get them to fix? They're so messed up. Maybe Allah's book that He's going to give me will help me solve this problem. So when Allah told him, come on this day, he's so eager to get the solution. What does he do? He goes there early. It's the same as, people come to the Imam and say, Imam, my son is doing this. Is there an ayah I can tell him? My husband does this, my wife does this. Can I tell them a hadith? Can I tell them an ayah that can solve this problem? It's a divine solution, right? Musa alayhi salam is in need of a divine solution, because these people, I don't know how much more can you see before you become a believer. Seriously. And you claim to be my follower and you're still causing me pain. So he goes and rushes to Allah. Another reason to rush to Allah is, if you had the choice between the company of Allah and the company of the Israelites, what you gonna pick? Allah's company. So he says to Harun, alayhi salam, his brother, he says, you watch over them. I'm leaving you in charge. I'm gonna go speak with Allah. So he goes to meet with Allah on the mountain. And he's left those annoying Israelites behind. And some of them he already knows they would rather mix other religions into Islam. He already knows that, yes or no? He knows that. So he knows that's a threat, but he's really eager to find the solution. He comes to meet with Allah, and Allah says to him, وَمَا أَعْجَلَكَ عَنْ قَوْمِكَ يَا مُوسَى? What rushed you away from your nation, Musa? Why did you come here early? You would think, in the worship of Allah, if you come early, that's a good thing. If you come to Fajr early, it's a good thing or a bad thing? If you come to Jumu'ah early, it's a good thing or a bad thing? If you prepare early, that's a good thing. And here, Musa alayhi salam came to receive Allah's book, and he came ahead of schedule. By any standard, coming early is a good thing. And here, Musa alayhi salam shows up early, and Allah says, why have you showed up early? What allowed you to rush away from your nation, Musa? He's actually critiquing Musa alayhi salam. Now Musa alayhi salam is in shock. Wait, this was a bad thing? I thought I did a good thing. So he turns to Allah and says, قَالَ هُمْ أُولَٰئِ عَلَىٰ أَثَرِي. No, those people, they are right behind me. They're not far behind, Ya Allah. And I left Musa with them. And so he says, well, they're not going to go anywhere. They're right there. I haven't left them too far back. وَعَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّي لِتَرْضَى. I rushed, I came to you rushing so you could be happy. I came here to make you happy, Ya Rab, because I thought coming early would please you. So he did this for the sake of Allah. I have a minute left, so I'm just going to tell you, maybe I shouldn't tell you, make you suffer a couple of days and think about this, but I'll tell you a little bit. I'll tell you just a little bit. Musa alayhi salam is a leader. And being a leader, one of the biggest tests of being a leader is you have to deal with people. You have to deal with people. As a leader, you have to deal with people that support you. You also have to deal with people that show you they love you to your face but hate you behind your face. You have to deal with people that are trying to destroy you. You have to deal with people that will listen to you in front of you and go and undo everything you instructed behind you. You have to deal with people that are waiting to see you fail. They're love to see you fail. You're in a position of leadership and they're constantly questioning your leadership. You have to deal with all of those people, isn't it? It's not an easy job. Being a leader is not an easy job. But prophets. This is, nowadays they say, oh, if you have toxic people in your life, you need to distance yourself from toxic people. It's so cute. Because prophets were surrounded by what kinds of people? Toxic people. And if they follow TikTok advice, you know what? All y'all Israelites are way too toxic. I'm out. I need a more positive environment. Prophets don't have that luxury. A real leader doesn't have the luxury of walking away from his difficult flock. He has to deal with his flock. He has to deal with them. And even if he's rushing to do something good, he's rushing to get Allah's book. And why does he want Allah's book? He wants Allah's book so he can help these people. Maybe that'll help them. Even then, rushing to a solution when you know they're not mature enough yet. They're not mature enough yet. You have to sacrifice your desire to get close to Allah for the demands of leadership. This is a huge community. There's people, there's so many volunteers here. There's such a board here. There's imams and others in positions of leadership here, scholars in leadership, and everybody's working night and day over here. And I can guarantee you, the people that are helping put the iftar together, the people that are helping put the youth program together, or people that are helping put, the tents outside, or managing the parking, sometimes they're the ones that are barely catching the salah. It happens or no? They're the ones that are not getting enough time to recite Qur'an. Everybody else is reciting, they're not getting time to recite Qur'an. And they would love to just rush towards Allah. And they have a guilt inside them that, Ya Allah, everybody's praying. I'm not getting to pray as much as everybody else. But you know what? The price of leadership is you have to serve the people. And it does take time away from rushing towards Allah. And if you rush towards Allah and abandon your responsibility and say, no, I'm just going to rush towards Allah, I don't have to take care of these tasks, then Allah is even questioning His own Prophet, Musa alayhi salam, and saying, no, your first responsibility is to those people. And when I call you on that day, every second before that time, you owe to them. You don't have that free time. That's for them. Because you're a leader. That's your expectation. Allah has a different standard for the leader. Everybody else, if they rush to Allah for worship, good. The leader, when they say, I want to take some personal time to do worship and abandon some of their critical leadership responsibilities, no good. Because that's their service to Allah. That is their spirituality. Allah is so balanced in the picture that He paints. These stories are so alive. I didn't even get to the juicy part. The juicy part is, what are they going to... Allah, He left them for a little bit, and I told you already they were interested in other gods, right? It's going to get much worse. It's going to get much worse. And when Musa alayhi salam comes back, we're going to see the anger of Musa alayhi salam. And the story's going to get far, far more intense, inshallah. But I'll tell you nothing about that now. We'll talk about that in a few days. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'anil Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayat wa dhikril hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We spoke last about the story of Samiri. We didn't really get to Samiri, actually. And we spoke about a story in the life of Musa alayhi salam that Allah has mentioned a couple of times. The central point of it is mentioned a couple of times. What's the central point? They've crossed the water. Musa alayhi salam has called Allah to speak with him to receive the Torah on the mountain. Okay? And the young man that beautifully recited, mashallah, I'm so proud of him, he recited from Surah Al-A'raf. And in Surah Al-A'raf, it's the same story that he was reciting from. Good job, by the way, mashallah. What he was reciting from, Allah tells the same story, but it's almost like it's from a different camera angle. You're looking at the same thing, but if you're looking at it from this angle, you see something else. You look at it from this angle, you see something else. That's what Allah does with stories in the Qur'an. He will tell you the same story in one surah from one angle, then He'll tell you the same story in another surah from a different angle. Right? And you will think that it's almost two different stories with one common point. Everything else seems to be so different. And that's because Allah is focusing on different things in different parts of the Qur'an. So the part that I'm going to recite to you or read from, that we started reading from, and I'm going to first give you kind of a recap. What did we do so far? I'll quickly translate what we did so far and then pick up from there. So you guys have context and it's a good review for you from a few days ago. So,
We begin. Ya Bani Isra'il, قَدْ أَنْجَيْنَاكُمْ مِنْ عَدُوِّكُمْ. The Israelites, after they cross the water, Allah addresses them. He says, we have rescued you from your enemy. وَوَاعَدْنَاكُمْ جَانِبَ الطُّولِ الْأَيْمَنِ. And we have taken a promise from you on the side of the right side of the mountain. The same mountain when Allah spoke to Musa. I talked about that last time. We've done that already. Okay. وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. And we have sent down manna and salwa to you, the food, the protein, the carbs. We talked about that last time, right? كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Eat from the good and pure things that we've provided you. وَلَا تَطْغَوْا فِيهِ. And don't rebel in it. Don't become rebellious within your rizq. Fihi, the he goes back to the rizq. So it was a strange phrase. Don't become rebellious within your rizq. We're going to see an explanation of that by the Qur'an itself a little later today. فَيَحِلَّ عَلَيْكُمْ غَضَبِي. Because if you do so, then my anger will be unleashed on you. So if you violate my rizq, or if you violate my laws within my rizq, then my anger will be unleashed on you. And then he says, وَمَنْ يَحْلِلْ عَلَيْهِ غَضَبِي فَقَدْ هَوَى. And whoever my anger gets unleashed on, then that person has fallen. Fallen could mean they have fallen from honor to humiliation. Could mean they are as good as fallen into the tips of, the depths of hell. Hawa can also mean an expression for they've been destroyed. The worst thing you can have is to fall from the rizq Allah has given you and given me, and we don't acknowledge it or appreciate it or stay within His bounds within it, and we've fallen. Okay, this is an ayah I skipped last time, but it's really important. Now Allah is telling them one more thing, a lesson that is incredible. He said, listen carefully. وَإِنِّي لَغَفَّارٌ. And I am someone truly that forgives over and over again. Ghaffar, fa'al in Arabic, is sighatul mubalagha lit-takrar. It's something that you do over and over again. Like a qassas is someone who, a butcher who cuts the meat over and over again. And a khabbaz is a baker who makes the bread over and over again. That's why it's called a khabbaz. A khayyat is a tailor because he stitches over and over again. And the same way Allah's name is Wahhab, Qahhar, Ghaffar. Same pattern, Fa'al. And that means Allah forgives repeatedly. What does it mean that someone forgives repeatedly? That means they're dealing with someone who makes mistakes what? Repeatedly. You don't have to forgive repeatedly if you're not dealing with someone who messes up repeatedly. That only makes sense in that context. So when Allah calls Himself Ghaffar, He lets the believers know, the Israelites, and by extension us, He lets them know, I know that you don't just make one mistake and from then on you become an angel. You make a mistake and tomorrow you make a new mistake and the day after you make a new mistake and then a year later you make the same old mistake sometimes too. You go back and make same mistake. You're human. You make mistakes. And when you make those mistakes, I'm telling you that I will forgive over and over again, but for a certain kind, not for everyone. I will not give this repeated benefit to everybody. Who is going to get that benefit? لِمَنْ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا ثُمَّ اهْتَدَى. It's really interesting language. He says, for whoever repents, meaning they really feel bad about what they did, they turn back to Allah. وَآمَنَ, then they restore their connection with Allah. They restore their faith. وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and they acted in a good way from then onwards. So, okay, they didn't just make a mistake and say, I'm pretty sure Allah's going to forgive again, so it's okay. It's okay. There's always next Ramadan. It's all right. That's not their attitude. But then what the remarkable thing about this ayah is Allah says, فَقَدِ اهْتَدَى, or ثُمَّ اهْتَدَى. After that, they became committed to guidance. You would think the order is the opposite. First, somebody commits to guidance, then they have faith, they strengthen their faith, then they do good deeds. Like the first thing is guidance. Okay, but Allah is mentioning the one who made a mistake, they make tawbah, they restore their faith, they do good deeds. All of this means they already have guidance, doesn't it? And He said after all of that, then they commit to guidance. What? But the first part, Tawbah, Iman, Amal Salih, all of that is guidance. So what do you mean guidance after that? What Allah is telling us is that even if I prayed and I made Tawbah and I gave Sadaqah and I left the haram, I did good things, I left bad things. That actually can be very dangerous also, because once I do those things, I might assume that those good deeds equal me having guidance. That's just not the case. Those are good deeds. Those are good deeds, but that doesn't mean that my search for guidance is over. I already graduated from the school of guidance. Now I need to make sure other people graduate. No. I'm on my quest myself. So actually, as they become better, they become even more concerned with their own commitment to guidance. This is a really powerful thing because very often in religious psychology, Muslims and other religions, when people become committed to a religion and they start believing that they have transformed and they start believing that they are now, they're reformed, they're born again, like the Christians call themselves born again, right? Or we say we've made tawbah, or alhamdulillah, Allah guided me, now I'm guided, now I've changed. Now that you feel like you've changed, you start feeling like I need to make sure everybody else changes. Because I'm past that. I used to have this problem many years ago. Man, I see myself in you. I used to be like you, but alhamdulillah, I'm here now. No. Okay, so you left that darkness, but there's another darkness that you need to confront. And then another one that I need to confront. And then another one that I need to confront. You understand? So the horizons of the darkness change. And I have to remain vigilant. And so he says, ثُمَّ اهْتَدَى. This is Allah's way of telling Muslims in the Qur'an in many places that we should never develop self-righteousness, that we shouldn't consider ourselves beyond criticism. And one of the best litmus tests to consider myself beyond criticism is I'm quick to point out the flaws of others or diagnose the flaws of others because I'm good. It's I see this problem in you and that problem in you and that problem in you. You see, I figured you out. This is what Allah is, the anecdote that Allah is giving us against that. So now, again, our review. وَمَا أَعْجَلَكَ عَنْ قَوْمِكَ يَا مُوسَى. What rushed you away from your nation, Musa? I talked to you about that last time, the discussion of leadership. هُمْ أُولَٰئِ قَالَ هُمْ أُولَٰئِ عَلَىٰ أَثَرِي. They were just behind me. They were literally just behind me. They are going to follow what I left with them. They are literally following my footsteps. وَعَجِلْتُ إِلَيْكَ رَبِّ لِتَرْضَى. And I rushed to you so you could be pleased. I thought this would make you happy. قَالَ. Now this is the part we didn't do before. قَالَ فَإِنَّا قَدْ فَتَنَّا قَوْمَكَ مِنْ بَعْدِكَ. Well, after you left, Allah tells him, what we have decided to do is we have put your nation to the test after you left. That's what Allah tells Musa on the mountain. We have decided to put your nation to the test after you left. وَأَضَلَّهُمُ السَّامِرِي. And Samiri, this guy named As-Samiri, he has misled them. He came to Allah to receive revelation and to correct the ways of the Israelites. And Allah says the Israelites are worse off now than they ever were before. In your absence, I decided to test them, and As-Samiri has misguided them. Now the first impression that somebody might get when they read this is, that means that sounds like Allah misguided them. Sounds like Allah is punishing Musa alayhi salam for showing up early and he misguided the entire nation. But this is what happens when we don't study Qur'an holistically. Surah Taha is a long surah, and earlier in the surah, Allah Azza wa Jal told Musa himself, the first time he was on the mountain, He told Musa alayhi salam then, وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. We tested you in lots of different ways. He tells Musa, we tested you in lots of different ways. How was Musa alayhi salam tested? Well, we think he was tested when he had to run away from Egypt. We thought he was tested when he was seeing the disaster of the Israelites. But actually, he was also tested with the opportunity to do the wrong thing. He was raised in the royal palace like royalty in Egypt, where all of the things that every Muslim knows are haram are completely halal. And so he's a millionaire, he's a baller, he's extremely strong, he has royal status, he's above the law because he's from the royal family. And that is actually a pretty big trial by itself. That freedom and that mobility is a trial by itself. Allah tested him with difficulty, but Allah also tested him with the good life. The good life can also be a pretty hard test. By the way, the good life being a test, or rizq being a test, is already part of the theme of this passage. Because Allah already said that if, don't rebel within my rizq. Right? La tatghaw fihi. He already told us that. So now, He says, now Allah is telling us, Allah has tested individuals. Allah will test me with hard times, and Allah will also test me with good times. And the same thing Allah does with entire nations. The same way Allah tests me in my life,
The same way Allah tests entire nations. So He'll test an entire nation with economic disaster. And He will test another nation with a great economic recovery and many good years. What are they going to do with that prosperity? What are they going to do with that economic revolution? What are they going to do with all that new development or their newly found resources? What are they going to do with it? You know? And so he tests in both ways. And He says, when you left, I tested them essentially with freedom. I tested them with, like a teacher that has a strict teacher that's in front of the classroom. All the kids are kind of behaved, unless they're in the teenage section, but they're kind of behaved. And then the principal says, "Can I see you in my office for a second?" And the teacher leaves the classroom. And what happens in the classroom after the teacher leaves? It's like a prison riot in the classroom. You can come back and barely find any desk in the same place that it was, any chair in the same place that it was. Some people hanging upside down from the ceiling fan, all kinds of stuff, right? You'll see that because actually those kids failed the test of personal responsibility. Every one of those kids could have sat in, and my teacher expects me to be here. I know where I'm supposed to be. I know why my parents sent me to school. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, with my time here and my purpose here. And then the moment they see the teacher walk away, they're like, freedom! And then they, you know what that is? They failed the test of personal responsibility. They failed the test of not being able to handle what? Freedom. Musa alayhi salam keeps a watchful eye on these guys. But when he walks away, now they're being tested with freedom. Now the ayah that the young man recited actually gives us a hint. Musa alayhi salam was kind of worried about leaving. So before he left, he turns to Harun alayhi salam and he says, "Ukhlufni fi qawmi." Listen, behind me, you're responsible for the whole nation. This is my nation, but I'm leaving you in charge. So even by saying, not ukhlufni fi qawmika, ya fi qawmina, or saying qawmi, he said qawmi, this is my people, I'm in charge, but I'm making you VP right now, acting president. You're in charge. You have executive authority right now, but remember, you're answerable to me when I come back. This chain of command. So he tells him that, but he says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. You better not fall into the trap or the ways of people that want to cause trouble. Mufsid is different from fasid. Fasid means a corrupt person. Mufsid is the one who creates trouble, who makes corruption. So Musa knows that within his people there are troublemakers. And before he leaves Harun, he says, "Listen, Harun, I'm leaving." And he could have given him a bunch of instructions. Do this, do this, do this, do this. All these, task list while I'm gone. The one task list he gives them is, watch out for these troublemakers. Do not fall into their trap. Do not follow their path. Just be careful of them. So he knows there are troublemakers there. Now one of those troublemakers is Samiri, this guy named Samiri. And Allah is talking to Musa alayhi salam, he's speaking with him, and he has a beautiful conversation with him actually. And the beautiful part of the conversation is actually in Surah Al-A'raf. The happy version of this story, the happy side of this story, we heard in recitation. But the stressful side of the story, we're hearing in Surah Taha. And here Allah tells him, Samiri, by the way, he's misguided your entire nation. Ya Allah, I came here to guide my nation, and the news you're giving is, my nation is misguided. And it's my fault. I came here to get guided, I came early, and because of that, they're misguided. وَأَضَلَّهُمُ السَّامِرِي. Now if Allah has already named the culprit, right? Because the Israelites, they don't like to say, I did it. They killed somebody. فَدَّرَأْتُمْ فِيهَا. They were pointing the finger at each. No, it wasn't me, it was that guy. That guy was like, me? That's my cousin. And the cousin was like, no, that's not me, it's him. Everybody's pointing at everybody. Nobody was willing to admit who committed the murder. But Allah solved that mystery this time, because Allah already told him, no, your whole nation is not misguided. The whole trouble was started by one guy, and Allah named him. So now Musa knows exactly who's to be held responsible. So you would think when Musa alayhi salam is going to come back, who's he going to give it to? Who's going to get it? Samiri's going to get it. He's going to deal with the Samiri, because Allah told him, أَضَلَّهُمُ السَّامِرِي. Now watch this. فَرَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. Musa alayhi salam came back to his nation. غَضْبَانَ, extremely enraged. He's extremely enraged. It's one thing that your people mess up, and they mess up quite a bit in the story of Musa. They mess up a lot. It's another that your own Rabb is telling you how much they messed up. That's a double embarrassment. Your own Rabb told you your nation is misguided. They failed a test. It was so easy for them to fall into the wrong. A prophet stays with them for many years, and it's hard for them to hold on to guidance. This guy Samiri does his thing for a few hours, a few days, a couple of weeks, the whole nation's misguided. Wow, you know what that tells you? Guidance is a long-term project, and misguidance is a really quick trend. It happens super fast. Building takes a long time, destruction takes a few seconds, isn't it? Building a building is a long project. Destroying a building is a couple of detonators and you're done, isn't it? So Allah is teaching us that misguidance, deterioration in a nation, it doesn't take many years. It can take a few days. And an entire Muslim nation can fall into corruption and misguidance. Even if weeks ago they were under the care of a prophet himself. So Musa alayhi salam is enraged, he's furious. But Allah didn't just say he's furious. He said asifan. He was also extremely sad and disappointed. It's interesting. Angry, maybe even anger is twofold. He's angry at them, but he's angry at himself for not seeing what was coming. Angry at himself for not going sooner. He's really sad that these people, Allah has done so much for them. Why can't they just straighten out? Why can't they do that? And he's also sad at himself. Why did I make this mistake? I shouldn't have come early. He's disappointed with himself. He's also sad, I put one responsibility. I tell Harun to do one thing. I told him not to let the troublemakers get their way. And Samiri is the top troublemaker. And Allah himself tells me he got his way. Come on, Harun. Come on. So there's multiple dimensions of the rage and of the sadness when he comes back. But he actually first came and he spoke. We'll look from the Qarina, we will see he doesn't speak to Samiri first. And he doesn't speak to Harun first. First he speaks to everybody. He just gathers everybody. He says, Ya qawmi, alam ya'idkum rabbukum wa'dan hasana? Did your Rabb, did your master not promise you a beautiful promise? Hasn't Allah already made you a beautiful promise? أَفَطَّالَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْعَهْدِ? Did many years pass by and you forgot? Was it so many decades? Was it an entire era that made you have amnesia about the promise of Allah? How did you just forget? By the way, a few ayat ago, Allah was telling them, I have taken a promise from you. Remember that? Just a few ayat ago. And now Musa himself is saying, alayhi salam, did you forget that Allah made you such a beautiful promise? Has it been that long that you forgot? أَفَطَالَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَمَدِ? And then he says, أَمْ أَرَدْتُمْ أَنْ يَحِلَّ عَلَيْكُمْ غَضَبٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ? Or did you actually want that Allah's anger should be unleashed on you? Allah's anger should be unleashed on you. Did you hear this before in these ayat? Allah's anger being unleashed? You did, didn't you? It's being repeated. Now Allah is telling us something. What they just did is the tafsir of don't violate my rizq. Don't violate my rizq, because if you violate my rizq, what's going to happen? My anger will be unleashed. And Musa is now coming back and saying, did you want Allah's anger to be unleashed on you? You know what? That means they violated within the rizq of Allah. They committed a violation within the rizq of Allah. So whatever they do, we're going to study properly, because that's what it means to unleash Allah's rage on you. May Allah protect us from His rage. فَأَخْلَفْتُمْ مَوْعِدِي. And you went back on the promise you made to me. You had promised me also. You had made a promise to Allah, but you also made a promise to me. How could you do this? He spoke to the entire nation. But then, it seems from the context, the Israelites were how many tribes? Do you guys know? How many tribes? 12 tribes. So 12 tribes have 12 leaders. And the tribes have several families. So some argue, Israelite accounts are, there were over 70 leaders of small and big families together. So now the leaders are coming to tell Musa alayhi salam what happened. You know, it's like the senators of the states coming to explain to the president kind of thing, right? So they're coming to now explain to Musa alayhi salam.
To help you understand this next ayah, I want you to understand something about the story. They ran away from Egypt. They crossed the water. They took whatever they could. So of course, if you can't carry heavy things, so at least you'll carry the most valuable things. So if you have a piece of jewelry, some stones, some important metal, some locket, some ring, some chain, so you'll definitely carry the valuable things. And they were afraid that in the travel and the journey, it might fall out of my pocket, I'll lose it, and I'll never find it again. So they went to their tribe leaders, everyone went to the leaders and said, hey, we're going to leave our valuable items with you because this is the safest place to keep the jewelry. So the leaders of the tribes, they kept the jewelry and the expensive items of all the Israelites. Whatever they had, they were carrying it. And it was a tough job because they're in the desert. They can be attacked by anywhere, from anybody. And where the attacker's going to go for, they're going to go for where the heavy bags are, right? So the leaders were actually kind of burdened with the responsibility of carrying all that gold and carrying all that jewelry of the entire nation. But they didn't want that responsibility, but they were responsible, so they had to do it. Now, here's what happens. قالوا ما أخلفنا موعدك بملكنا. We did not violate the promise we made to you under our own authority. The leaders are telling him, look, I know we're in charge of our families and our tribes. We could exercise no authority. The people rebelled. The people came at us. And what did they say? حُمِّلْنَا أَوْزَارًا مِّن زِينَةِ الْقَوْمِ. We were made to carry all the burdens of all the beautiful things that people have, all their jewelry and stuff. We were in charge of that. But people came rushing to us and says, give us back our jewelry. We want our jewelry right now. Give it, give it, give it. I remember that, like everybody rushing to the bank to withdraw their deposits. So everybody rushed to them to withdraw all their items. And we were like, what's happening? Why are all these people all of a sudden asking for all their stuff back? But we were happy because we're tired of carrying everybody's stuff. So they say, in the wording of the ayah, they say, فَقَذَفْنَاهَا. We just dropped it. We're like, good, take it. Less problem for me. At least I won't be the first guy to get killed when the robbers come. Because if I have all the money, I'll be the first guy to get killed. So please, no, take your stuff. I don't want it. We didn't know why they were asking. We didn't know. And then turns out, all these people took all their jewelry and they handed it all over to this guy named Samiri. And Samiri, basically we'll see what he did next, but they say, and فَكَذَلِكَ أَلْقَى السَّامِرِي. And this is the scheme that Samiri came up with. That's what the leaders tell him. So the first investigation of Musa was, first thing, he spoke to the entire people. The second thing, who did he speak to? The leaders. The leaders tell him, this is what happened, this is what's going down, this is what occurred. But then they're still, the leaders are talking, and they explain to him, فَأَخْرَجَ لَهُمْ عِجْلًا جَسَدًا لَهُ خُوَارٌ. So he took all that jewelry, melted it down, and he built a statue of a calf, a baby cow. Okay? And he built the statue in a way that's got holes through it. So when the wind passes, it makes a whistling, howling sound. Ooh! It's pretty good. I know, I practiced before I came here. And when they heard it, they're like, did the cow just say moo? It's a miracle. They've seen miracles from Musa alayhi salam, right? They've seen miracles from Musa alayhi salam, and now they see this cow going, woo! And they're like, whoa, But then he says, فَقَالُوا, and this is where Samiri played his game. The people were convinced, they gave it to him and they said, هَذَا إِلَهُكُمْ وَإِلَهُ مُوسَى فَنَسِيَ. They said, this is your God. And this is Musa's God. Musa just forgot. Musa, I don't know what happened to him. He went off in the mountains. But actually, our real God is this. And the question then comes, how did people become from... Because Islam makes you smart. The reality is, at least it's supposed to. How did they go from smart to so stupid so quickly? That's an important question. Because sometimes you have to look at people in your own family and say, what happened? How did you go from this to this? Sometimes you find people that are highly intellectual, really smart in their field. They're a doctor, they're a PhD, they're an engineer, they run their business, they're so smart.
And when it comes to their deen, they believe in the stupidest thing that violates the most basic principles of Islam, and they're so superstitious, and they say the most vile, shirky things, and you're like, but you're so smart though. How did you, what the, I don't see the connection. And we have to understand this piece. The operative word here is ijl. Ijl. Ijl is a baby calf. But ijl is also from the etymology of ajal, which means to rush, which is the same word used in these ayat when Musa alayhi salam was questioned by Allah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla said, "Ma a'jalaka an qawmika ya Musa." A'jalak. So there's ijl there too, right? Am ajiltum adab. So he says, you know, alam ya'idkum rabbukum hasana afatala alaykum al-amad. Did the long period pass over you? What does that mean? Why did you do ijl? Why did you do ajal with the ijl? It's a play on words. But why is that? Because this is the key. And I've talked about this before, but I really want you to understand it here. Our religion, Islam, is different from every other religion on the face of this earth in many ways. But one of those ways is our religion is not a way to place orders with Allah and place our demands with Allah and expect a delivery within a schedule, like you place an order on Amazon and you're expecting delivery. Our du'as are not, I made du'a on the 27th of Ramadan, it's been like 3 days, and they're still not saying yes to my marriage proposal. I don't understand. Like, right? I mean, I did it like after every rak'ah I did it, every sajda I did it, and still, I don't understand. How come Allah is not answering my dua? You know what that is? I did my part, now it's time for Allah to do His part, and He better do it on a schedule. He better do it on a schedule. And you know what? Other religions, they see their relationship with their God or their gods as a way of making their wishes. That's why people are willing to walk up 10,000 steps on a mountain to see a statue all the way on top and say, please let my cow give the best milk in the village. I just really need to be the number one. I mean, I need to be the dairy king of my village. And then he'll come back down because now he's guaranteed, right? They're hoping that things work out in this life. That's their relationship with their religion. Musa alayhi salam, our religion, we turn to Allah. Our number one relationship with Allah is not to get what we want in this life. Allah keeps telling us in the Qur'an over and over again, this life is temporary. It's filled with tests. I will test you with good. I will test you with bad. He keeps telling us this to give us perspective. And the next life is the ultimate life. Why is He saying this over and over again? Because you shouldn't get obsessed with what? This life. Man kana yuridul ajila. Even Allah says, people who just want this life, they want immediate results, they want something solved immediately. But the people of the Israelites had seen religions in Egypt, and they had been influenced by other cultures where people go and want their wishes, and they go to their gods and they make their wishes. And Musa alayhi salam is gone, and he's gone for more than 30 days, and they're like, I mean, how are we going to get God to answer our prayers? How's it going to work? Well, you know, there is something we can do. We don't have to leave Islam, but not all the practices that we saw, not all of them were wrong. I mean, the Egyptians built huge temples. They built the world's greatest empire. You think they were stupid? How can they be? So their religion wasn't entirely dumb. Some things of it were good. Some things of it may have some resonance, some value. So Samiri takes this idea and says, you know, actually, this doesn't make you a mushrik. You're still Muslim. You're still part of this ummah. But this is also a way to get your prayers answered. It's okay. It's not really shirk. Don't worry about it. Why are they so keen to answer this call? Because it's a quick way to get your wishes answered. That's the appeal of it all. Something visual in front of them. In fact, I told you last time, they saw other people having idols. They said, could you make us one of those? Those look pretty good, right? Now Musa alayhi salam comes back, and he says, and now Allah comments here. Actually, the leaders are still explaining what happened, but Allah comments in the middle. أَفَلَا يَرَوْنَ أَلَّا يَرْجِعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ قَوْلًا وَلَا يَمْلِكُ لَهُمْ ضَرًّا وَلَا نَفْعًا. Don't they see that they cannot respond to them in any way? And they can't control any benefit or any harm or any benefit? How did they not see that? They saw the world's mightiest king unable to harm them.
They saw the world's mightiest military drown in front of their eyes and couldn't benefit themselves. They saw that with their own, and now they can turn to false gods like that? Before we learn more about the Israelites, my purpose of sharing these ayat with you is I have to learn about myself and you have to learn about yourself. We have to give up placing false hope in elements from other religions that we have actually introduced into Islam, into Muslim society. There are many, many Muslim societies in the world and cultures where you and I have been raised, where practices have made their way into Islam very subtly, very slowly, that have actually nothing to do with Islam, and a lot of them have to do with getting your prayers and your wishes answered. You can go to places in the world where some married couple cannot have a child, or when they have a child, they keep having a daughter. Astaghfirullah, how can you have a daughter, right? So you need a son. So you'll go to somebody, some kind of Samiri, because this Samiri is a representation of the Samiri industry. It's an entire industry. You'll go to that Samiri and say, making dua, it's not working, what should I do? He says, hold on, let me contact the jinns. And then he'll say, hey, here's a Snickers mini, wrap it up in, aluminum foil and wrap it up around your arm and blow on it every morning and do this for 35 days and you will have twin boys. And you'll see women walking around with Snickers bars or whatever they do. And why are you doing this? Don't touch that, don't touch that. Also tell them, here, wear this amulet. If you take it off, your children will die. And some lady's got like infections on her wrist, and the doctor said, please, no, I love my son. And this is not happening in some pagan society for thousands and thousands of years ago. This is happening in the homes of people that say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Why? Because Allah told us about Samiri, because Samiri created a business out of people's wishes and desires. And he wants to mix religion with it and create this industry where people come to him and they want to create these fake miracles or special effects and all of that so that people will be drawn towards that. This is an entire thing. By the way, Samiri, interesting name, Samiri. A few generations later, after the kingdom of Solomon, Sulaiman alayhi salam, this is many generations after in Jewish tradition, Judea and Israel were two different kingdoms, and actually within one of their kingdoms, the king introduced the worship of calves. He used to build statues of golden calves and all around temples. And they were the Muslims of that time, by the way, mind you. They were the Muslims of that time, and he was ordering the building of statues, and that was actually in Samira. Okay, they're called the Sumerians in biblical literature. Study the Sumerians. They came generations later. Perhaps the word as Samiri is actually telling us this one guy's misguidance that became a trend gave birth to an entire civilization down the road that was worshiping calves within the Israelites who were the Muslims of that time. You know what that teaches us? One person's misguidance in one lifetime, 10 generations later, could be an entire nation. We have to be careful how we practice our religion, because the way you practice your religion isn't just about you. It may be about 1 million people 500 years from now. Your actions can actually impact millions of people in the future that you don't know. Just like somebody became Muslim 1,000 years ago, and we don't know how many hundreds of thousands of children belong in that family tree because of that one person's shahada. And how many of them are ulama and scholars and huffaz and du'at and God knows what khair they've brought to the ummah from one young man taking a shahada thousands of years ago or 1,000 years ago. The same way when someone goes down the path of shirk or kufr or disobedience, falls into a Samiri trap, what's going to happen 5 generations later, 10 generations later? You understand? So this is actually a lesson Allah has embedded by just even inserting the name as Samiri. Now, وَلَقَدْ قَالَ لَهُمْ هَارُونَ. And he hasn't talked to Harun yet. Musa is only talking to who right now? The leaders. And the leaders said, by the way, Harun talked to them. They're telling Harun, by the way, he tried to fix them. And he said, مِنْ قَبْلِ يَا قَوْمِ إِنَّمَا فُتِنْتُمْ بِهِ. You people are being tested by this. Don't fall into this trap. إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ الرَّحْمَنِ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Your master is Ar-Rahman. Your God is Ar-Rahman. He could have said, Inna Rabbakumullah. But he didn't say Allah. He said, Ar-Rahman. Why? Because they're looking for care and love and blessings right now. And Allah says, why are you looking in the wrong place? You worship Ar-Rahman. You don't need a replacement for His Rahmah anywhere else. Come on, what's wrong with you? And He tried to correct them. By the way, the leaders are also telling him in between the lines, we tried to stop them, we couldn't. Who were we? Even Harun couldn't stop them. I mean, why are you yelling at us? Harun couldn't even stop them. He was talking to them and they still did what they did. So he says, فَاتَّبِعُونِي وَأَطِيعُوا. Please follow me, obey me. Harun alayhi salam said to them. And they said to him, they said to Harun, Musa was gone. They said to Harun alayhi salam, قَالُوا لَن نَبْرَحَ عَلَيْهِ عَاكِفِينَ. We are sitting here doing our worship حَتَّى يَرْجِعَ إِلَيْنَا مُوسَى. Until Musa comes back. Who are you? Well, you think you're Musa? Harun. So, where's your staff? Huh? I don't see you parting water. You know what that is? This is a powerful lesson in the Qur'an that not all leaders have the same influence. Not all leaders are the same. Not everybody can be Musa. Harun cannot be Musa. Musa is not Harun. When Musa alayhi salam is there, even though they mess around, everybody's still overall in line. Musa goes for a few days. A prophet is in charge, isn't it? Harun is a prophet, isn't he? But does he have control over them anymore? No. Even within prophets, Allah gave some the power of influence more than others. The same way, in our deen, in our history, some people will have more ability to lead than others. You could have in a family someone who's a great scholar, great leader, great influencer for khair, great authority, people listen to him, and his own children, nobody listens to them. His own brother, nobody listens to them. They can't keep up with that legacy. You see this in the world of business. Somebody created a business, launched the business, took it, went public, all of it. He's the CEO now. When the CEO dies, somebody else takes his place. Is the business the same anymore? No, it drops, right? It's not that level of influence and authority anymore. So we don't blame, this leadership, they just don't even know what they're doing. Somebody could be commenting, Harun just doesn't have the stuff. Musa alayhi salam's got the stuff, He knows how to fix it. Harun alayhi salam, he just can't do it. No, Allah gives this ability and this power to impact people and have authority over people. It doesn't come from a person. It actually comes from where? It comes from Allah. And sometimes one of the tests of a nation is, and one of the great fitnas of a nation is when they stop having any regard for their leader, because then they fall into chaos, right? Even if the leader is sincere, he's just not strong enough to stop anything from happening. They're not going to listen to him. This happened in the history of the Israelites. Yaqub alayhi salam was the head of the household. He's the father. He has 12 sons, right? And he doesn't have any control over his sons, even though he's the head of the household. You see that? On the flip side, you find people like Musa alayhi salam, who has control. And even though he has control over some very rowdy people, and they give him a hard time. And if you study the biblical account, they even tried to kill him multiple times. Actually, that happened too. The Qur'an doesn't go that far. The Qur'an says, "Lima tu'dhunani." Why do you cause me pain? They caused him pain. That's what the Qur'an says. They mocked him, caused him pain, but still he had a level of authority. And perhaps also because he was physically also very intimidating, because we know what his punch can do, right? So they don't want to mess with him too much. So anyway, so now they say even Harun, he couldn't stop them. مَا مَنَعَكَ إِذْ. So now Musa alayhi salam comes to Harun. His third stop. First the whole nation, second the leaders, third who? Harun. But Allah didn't tell him about the nation, didn't tell him about the leaders, tell him about Harun. Who did Allah tell him about? Oh, Samiri is going to be the final stop. He's not starting there. Because the criminal is the criminal. Fine. But the criminal could never have succeeded if the community didn't fail to begin with. The community was first responsible. You would think the leader should be responsible. No, you were all responsible. And then who's above you? The immediate leadership was responsible. And then above you, the presidential leadership was responsible. Then we'll go after the criminals. First, we have to understand where was the problem of within our own ranks before we go and blame the criminal. So when, for example, there's a problem in the Muslim in the Muslim Ummah, and there's an enemy from the outside or some criminal, some culprit, okay, they're the culprit, fine, but the culprit can't succeed and continue to get away with their crimes until the people become lax enough and there's enough subscribers to their wrongdoing that allow that to happen, you see? And that's the first line, that's the first thing that has to be addressed. If you say, oh, these people are spreading ignorance, these people are spreading ignorance in the ummah, we have to stop them. Hold on, that's stop number 4. That's Samiri. That's stop number 4. First, we have to educate the ummah so they don't become victims of ignorance. If you educate them well enough, then you don't have to worry about Samiri having a business. If all of the people had a good knowledge of Tawrat and a good sense of tarbiyah, then Samiri wouldn't have any customers. So you go to them first, and then those above them, and then those above them, and then finally he's going to come to Samiri. Anyway, so he turns to Harun, and he says, قَالَ يَا هَارُونَ مَا مَنَعَكَ إِذْ رَأَيْتَهُمْ ضَلُّوا. What stopped you what prevented you from stopping them? From when they went on the wrong path? Why didn't you just stop them? What kept you from taking action? I made you the leader. Why didn't you act like the leader? And Musa alayhi salam, أَلَا تَتَّبِعَنِي أَفَعَصَيْتَ أَمْرِي. Did you also not follow me? You also disobeyed me? You? And that's his own brother, right? So now look at the next ayah. قَالَ يَا ابْنَ لَا تَأْخُذْ بِلِحْيَتِي وَلَا بِرَأْسِي. Son of my mother, please don't grab me from my beard and my head. Please don't do that. I need to do a demonstration. Any volunteers? Want to volunteer? Come on, come here. Give me a volunteer. Come over here. Stand right here, young man. What's your name? Noah? Noah. Okay, come on, Noah. We're going to pretend your name is Harun, okay? All right. Okay, so he's Harun. What did you do? You grab the face, you grab the head, you're done. Excellent job. Give me 5. Round of applause for Noah, please. Thank you very much. Good job. What did you do? What did you do? How could you do this? He's grabbing his face. And his brother's like, bro, come on, remember mom? Yabna the literal phrase is son of my mother. Son of my mother means, because when Musa alayhi salam thinks about mom, what happens to him? He calms down. Hey, come on. We're from the same mom. Remember mom? He said, can you please not grab me with my head and my beard? Ow! So that's what he says to him. Now, the thing is, did Musa alayhi salam grab the ummah's beard and their head? Did he grab the leader's beard and their heads? No. How come he's... And I would say the least responsible, because he did his part. He tried to stop them. But the one he's grabbing is his own brother. Why? Because in leadership, there are thousands of people under you. But there are some people that are in your inner circle. And the inner circle are the people that you can yell at, and they know why you're yelling. Because you have a relationship of trust with them at a higher level. And you can hold them to account, and you can be tougher with them, and you don't have to be politically correct with them, and you can expect more hours from them, and more volunteer time from them, or more sacrifice from them, because they are part of what? The inner circle. The inner circle of Musa alayhi salam is there's multiple circles. There's the ummah, then there's the leadership circle, and then there's the innermost circle, and the innermost circle is only Musa and who? Harun. You messed up? And by the way, his anger, his grabbing his brother's face, his beard and his head is an expression of how close he is to Harun. Because if he's not that close, then they can have a debrief, and they can have a performance review and very formal. I realize that you failed in your leadership. Could you please explain what transpired? Like that, you could do that like HR style. You could do it that way, but this is a more intimate setting because they are that close. They are partners in this mission. So he says, please don't grab me. And remember mom, basically, إِنِّي خَشِيتُ أَن تَقُولَ فَرَّقْتَ بَيْنَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ وَلَمْ تَرْقُبْ قَوْلِي. I was just scared. I'm telling you, I was terrified that if I stand up to these people, there were multiple possibilities. I'm going to read in between the lines what Mufassirun have said. If I stood up to these people had become so crazy, they had become such a cult, that if I tried to stop them, I'm telling you, they would have killed me. They would have killed me. And if they killed me, then the people that were supporting me would have started a civil war with them. And by the time you came back, there would be bloodshed everywhere. If I spoke as much as I could, anymore, and these people were willing to become violent. Another powerful lesson. What is that? When Muslims deteriorate, because remember, guidance takes a long time to build, misguidance happens very quickly. When misguidance seeps into a community, they become like an angry mob. You cannot question what they do, it really enrages them. Their voices rise. What did you say? You? You're going to say that? Say it again. This is going to become their attitude. And they can even become ready to kill. The more towards misguidance you go, the less control you have over your emotions. If somebody criticizes Islam, insults the Prophet ﷺ, insults the Qur'an, comes to me and insults, I can sit down with them and reason with them and show them the stupidity of their ways without my temperature rising. I can do that. You know why? Because the truth is on my side. But if somebody comes and insults Islam and I don't have any knowledge, I don't have a foundation, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to start insulting them. I'm going to start yelling at them because I don't have a more powerful weapon than my own emotions. People that build a cult, because a cult never has an intellectual foundation. So the only thing that can defend a cult is rageful emotions. And he basically said, Harun is basically telling him, look, if I had gone any further, this nation would have been split. There would have been a civil war because these people were out of control. There's no way. And I had to decide whether I allow you to come back because you have enough influence as a leader to be able to do something about this, or make the problem even worse. I had to make a judgment call. And actually when he explained himself, Musa alayhi salam understood. You know what that means? A leader should know whether or not they have influence or not. And if they have lesser influence, they have to make a different kind of decision. And if they have more influence, then they can make more aggressive decisions. That actually depends on the ability and the doors that Allah has opened for them. It actually depends on that. I'll take one more minute, inshallah, and I'll be done. I know we didn't finish the story, but still. فَمَا خَطْبُكَ يَا Samiri. Finally. So, what's your story, Samiri? Finally, Allah has turned to who? Samiri. This is a complicated part of the tafsir. There are many opinions here. I'm going to share the opinion of Al-Isbahani and Imam Al-Razi and Ibn Ashur as opposed to the opinion of Imam Al-Alusi and some of the others. So there are multiple ways of looking at this part of the story, just for transparency. I just want to tell you where my position is coming from. Also influenced by the writings of Amin Ahsan Islahi and Tadabbur al-Qur'an. They have one set of views. And basically the summary of those views is, I took what he says, قَبَضْتُ قَبْضَةً مِنْ أَثَرِ الرَّسُولِ. I took a bit from the footsteps of the remnants of the messenger. Some people interpret this that he took something from the horseshoe of the horse that Jibreel alayhi salam was riding, and he saw him and nobody else could see him. بَصَرْتُ بِوَلَمْ يُبْصِرُوا بِهِ. I saw what they couldn't see. So he saw Jibreel alayhi salam, and he took a little bit of the dust from the feet of the horse of Jibreel alayhi salam, and he put it on the calf, and the calf came back to life. And none of this is, when you investigate it, none of this actually meets the criteria of absolutely sahih. So I'm not more inclined towards that view. Ibn Ashur and others have expressed a different view. And you know what that is? I took a little piece of Islam, the remnant of the messenger being Musa alayhi salam. I took some things from the religion that's already here, and then I tossed that too. I tossed that too. Meaning I manipulated whatever pieces of Islam people could connect with, and then I did my own thing. كَذَلِكَ سَوَّلَتْ لِي نَفْسِي. And that's what I felt like doing. That's what I felt like doing. And that's his confession. Another way to read this is, actually, yeah, I see things that other people can't see. I have a spiritual connection. You know, you're a prophet. You get the ghaib, right? I get some ghaib business too. And I saw something nobody else can see. And this is why I did it. Did he say any of this to them? No, he sold them a calf. He didn't tell them nothing about no Rasul or nothing. He's trying to sell this story to Musa alayhi salam. And now he's trying to sound Islamic by using Ar-Rasul in his rationale. Because he's trying to tell people, no, this is not shirk. This is also from something to do with Ar-Rasul. And Musa alayhi salam doesn't want to hear any more explanation. What do you mean Rasul? What do you mean Qabda? What do you mean this piece of dust? What, explain yourself. No. Musa alayhi salam sees right through it. He doesn't want to hear it. He realizes this guy is poison. He can manipulate any situation to sell his version of religion. He will do whatever he can. So I need to put a stop to it. And if I kill him, Because Musa is within his rights to kill him. If I kill him, he'll become a hero. Some people, he say, die for the righteous cause. And because he's already said, Fadasiya, Musa is the one who forgot who the true God is. So some people will say, I'm misguided, he's guided. No, he has to live basically in exile. So Musa alayhi salam comes with a new punishment for him. Our time is up, so maybe another time, inshallah. I'll tell you, we'll dive into the punishment one day that Musa alayhi salam gave to him and the conversation Allah had with him. And that's the final thing that Musa alayhi salam as a leader dealt with. The thing to contemplate for us is the hierarchy. First the people, then the immediate leadership above them, then the top leadership, and finally the culprit. And that's one of the most important pieces of guidance in these ayat. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow us to draw wisdom and guidance from the remarkable stories and lessons and teachings in the Qur'an. And may Allah allow us to bring them into our lives and overcome our own shortcomings. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.